President Donald Trump promising the current talk about gun control will have concrete results. The president speaking, warning he can take action himself if Congress does not act, and he says he's not afraid of the NRA.
Bump stocks, we're writing that out. I'm writing that out myself. I don't care if Congress does it or not. I'm writing it out myself, okay? Don't worry about the NRA. They're on our side. You guys, half of you are so afraid of the NRA. There's nothing to be afraid of. And you know what? If they're not with you, we have to fight them every once in a while. That's okay.
Joining me now is Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Ken, thanks for being here this morning.
Sure.
A lot going on. You have told us on this program you do not see the need for changes to our gun laws or additional gun laws in this country to address the problem that we're now debating. Have your views in recent days changed at all?
You know, I wish we could do something that would actually make an impact, and I don't think changing gun laws is going to affect somebody that's willing to kill people. What's going to affect them is a deterrent, which is having people in place to do something about it. And secondly, when the gunman gets there, having somebody that can actually respond. Having laws that are not going to be followed by a gunman don't really end up making much of a difference at all.
What about this issue of bump stocks, for example? The president says if Congress doesn't act, I will. They're gone, he said.
Look, I don't have a problem with making that change. I'm just saying I don't think it'll make that much difference to somebody that's willing to kill people. I think ultimately the only response, we can spend all this time talking about this stuff, but the longer we go without defending our children and our churches and our businesses, the more we're going to have people killed that shouldn't be unnecessarily killed.
The president said yesterday he's not afraid of the NRA, and nobody else should be either. The governor of your state, Greg Abbott, has been criticized for being just that, afraid of the NRA. This Democratic gubernatorial candidate, Andrew White, is saying, I know he has an A+ rating to protect. He is calling on the governor of Texas for this special session to promote common sense gun safety legislation. Is that something that your state would consider?
Well, I think if there's anything that we need to do, it's back to how do we defend our children. And that the idea that this Mr. White, who's not actually a nominee yet, I don't think ultimately is going to work. What's going to work, the only thing that people like this understand is force on the other side. And so we can keep talking about all these regulations, but the unfortunate fact is I'm going to be back on these shows over and over until we have people in the schools that can do something about it.
And I know that is a goal down in Texas, but I mean, getting back to this, to Andrew White, who has taken this opportunity to really go after your governor. He says, I'm a gun owner, I'm a hunter. We still need changes. Are Democrats gaining steam on this issue?
Look, I don't know. Either way, what matters to me is not the politics of this. Look, he may be taking advantage of this because we've had this horrible tragedy, and it is a horrible tragedy, and I understand that people want to immediately fix this, and I do too, but what matters to me is what will work. And in Texas, we believe that the thing that's going to work is having people prepared when these occurrences happen, not creating some gun law that's going to not be followed by somebody that's willing to kill people.
I want to move on to the issue of immigration, something very important for your state. The Supreme Court has now rejected the president's appeal on DACA. Clearly, as you saw yesterday, the president was not happy about that. But this does take a lot of pressure off of Congress to act by that March 5th deadline. What is next?
Well, ultimately, I mean, it's going to continue going through the circuit courts, and I think ultimately you're going to see the Supreme Court have to deal with this because it's obviously an important issue for the president, for our nation, for the safety of our country, and an issue that needs to be resolved. And the truth is, this is something that Obama did that was unconstitutional, and if something ultimately is not decided, we'll be back in court to resolve it.
The president has suggested the Supreme Court will ultimately side with him. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that. I mean, I think he has every right to rescind an executive order that Obama put in place. I don't even know what the basis really is for saying that a president can't undo an executive order that he views as unconstitutional, especially if the original executive order was allowed to go into place. I don't see how that ultimately doesn't happen. The Supreme Court doesn't rule in the president's favor.
And now we know, as far as border security is concerned, the president will be making this trip to California to view these wall prototypes. What are your thoughts on what you know so far as the options on the wall?
Well, look, you know, this is something we really care about in Texas. You know, I know California is a different place, but we have places along the border where we have walls and fences, and it's been shown to be very effective, like in El Paso, where crime dropped from, significantly, and El Paso became a very safe city. So, we in Texas, we really want the best things put in place, whether it's a wall, whether it's more border agents, whether it's more technology. Let's use all of the best that we have.
Speaking of California, the mayor of Oakland, a sanctuary city, warning residents of ICE raids. She is standing by that. As you heard earlier in our program, she has no regrets about putting that warning out there to her residents. Was it legal for her to do that, Ken?
Look, she's going to have some problems with funding because the federal government obviously provides grants, and there's a requirement of cooperation with the federal government on immigration and turning over people who are criminals. I think it's very unfortunate. She has a free speech right. I think it's very unfortunate for her citizens that she is putting her people at risk, because the people that ICE is coming after are, they're criminals, and she is giving them warning. There may be some way for the federal government to challenge her. I don't know if they'll pursue it, but I think at the very least she is risking her own citizens and funding for her city. Yeah,
Judge Napolitano weighing in earlier saying that it's still tied to the Obama budget, so she's still acting lawfully within that budget agreement, but that obviously could soon change. Your state, Ken, is taking another shot at undoing Obamacare. You personally are leading this charge, leading a 20-state lawsuit against it.
Yeah, so it's Wisconsin and Texas leading the charge, 20 states. The original case was interestingly decided. The individual mandate where Congress ordered people to buy health insurance actually was ruled by the Supreme Court as unconstitutional, but Roberts took into account the penalty and called that a tax and basically allowed this to stay in place because of the taxing authority of Congress. Well, now, with the new act by Congress on tax reform in December, that penalty was eliminated, and so there's really no basis to allow Obamacare to stay in place. So we are very, very excited and think we have a very good chance of eliminating Obamacare once and for all.
A fascinating stat here. Texas has sued the government more than 60 times since 2008, Ken. What's going to be different this time?
Nothing. We're going to win again. I think we've been very successful at defeating unconstitutional actions by the Obama administration, and this is going to be no exception. I don't think there's a leg to stand on to keep Obamacare in place. So we're pretty excited about this, and we think it will be resolved actually relatively quickly.
It's a fascinating time for this country, Ken. So much going on. How would you even say, what would you say is the priority? We just went through DACA, border wall, Obamacare. What is the priority for the state of Texas right now? And I'll throw in there gun control debate happening right now.
It's always safety first, whether it's immigration or whether it's guns. Obviously, we want to protect our citizens. But then when you follow up with things like Obamacare that have a significant impact on our lives, our health, which obviously is about life, and on our economy. So they're all very significant issues, and unfortunately, the reason we're having to deal with this is we have a fundamental problem here. We had a president that ignored the Constitution, that ignored separation of powers, and so it's created a ripple effect and some very significant problems in our country, and that we're now starting to resolve.
Sounds like you feel you have a partner in this president.
You know what? He's done an amazing job. I've been extremely impressed. He's done more for our state and for Texas, and I think the nation, than any president that I've seen in my recent lifetime. So I'm very grateful for his efforts.
Ken Paxton, the Texas Attorney General, thanks for joining us this morning.